Hey guys, what's up? I'm here with a review of a werewolf film that is directed by the guy who directed The Descent, and you guys know how much I loved The Descent. It's a movie from 2002, and tonight's movie is Dog Soldiers. Dog Soldiers is basically a movie about these guys doing a military routine in Scotland, and they basically encounter werewolves, and they have to fight werewolves. And it's a horror comedy. So, I mean, I've seen what the director can do with regular horror, and he's pretty damn good at it. I'm wondering if he's any good at horror comedy, so let's just watch the movie and find out ourselves. So there's this couple camping in the woods of Scotland, and the chick is like, "Hey, I have a gift for you," and she gives him this knife, and this knife, ironically, happens to be made out of silver. I have a feeling that will come in handy later in the film. So then later that night they're about to have sex, and then the woman's dragged out of the tent and killed by a werewolf, and then the guy's killed by the werewolf before he can grab the knife and stab the werewolf. And then it kind of cuts to like 2 hours earlier, I guess, where some guy's being chased through the woods by like military officers, and he's basically doing this drill that is like his final exam to get into this like special ops kind of force or whatever. And at the end of the thing they're like, "Hey, now you gotta shoot this dog that you've been running with for the past few hours." And he's like, "I'm not going to shoot the dog for no reason," so he doesn't do it, and basically he doesn't pass the test. And that's kind of where I stopped writing. The acting in this movie is pretty good all around. Everybody gives a pretty awesome performance. I mean, it's not the best acting I've ever seen, but for a movie like this, it's pretty good. The writing is also very funny, very clever. Well, probably not clever, but at least very funny and pretty, and the movie's all around pretty, really well written. But then again, this is coming from the guy who made The Descent, so honestly, I didn't know. Honestly, I mean, what do you expect? The characters are flat, but they're not flat to the point that you don't want to, that they're not flat and annoying to the point that you won't want to spend 100 minutes with them. Because with the 105 minutes that you do spend with them with this film, I honestly enjoyed it. They're very fun characters. They have a bit of personality. They're likable. All that. The gore and monster effects in this movie are absolutely amazing. Very, very top-notch. Not the best werewolves I've ever seen in a movie, and it definitely does not have the best werewolf transformation I've ever seen in a movie. I still think that title goes to American Werewolf in London. The music I really dig. It's a little creepy, and it helps set the mood for some scenes. Even though at some point the movie stops being kind of creepy and starts just being in balls to the wall gore fest, but you know, that's horror movies. The pacing in this movie is pretty good for the most part. The movie, you know, has enough going on to keep you engaged and interested throughout the entire thing. And the sound mix is also really good here. The lighting is good, is really good. The camera work is about average, which is kind of what I expected. I really don't have many complaints about this movie. Actually, I don't have a single complaint about this movie. It's legitimately funny, and the writer/director, Neil Blackwell, I know his first name is Neil, so I'm just going to say Neil. The director, Neil, he is definitely a good writer. I'm pretty sure he wrote The Descent as well, and The Descent is a very, very well-written movie. This movie is very well written, and not a lot of horror comedy directors know how to write funny dialogue, you know, and goofy characters, while at the same time doing gross out humor. Sometimes it's one or the other. I mean, it's not super rare that you find both, because you can find both, and there are directors who are good at it, but for the most part, not all directors are good at this kind of thing. Thankfully, this guy is. And I've got to admit, there were scenes in this movie where I legitimately laughed out loud, and that rarely happens to me anymore because I've seen so many comedy movies and so many comedy horror films to the point that I just can't laugh at the jokes anymore. They're just so, like, overplayed and overdone. On the gore meter from 1 to 10, 1 being something like Nosferatu and 10 being something like Brain Dead, Dog Soldiers is probably about a 6. It gets pretty gory, especially in like the last half of the movie. Some disembowelments, a head being ripped off here and there. Yeah. This movie's definitely on par with Shaun of the Dead and The Descent, 2 other like really popular British horror movies. And I'd definitely say I like this as much as I did The Descent. Maybe a little bit more because this one is, you know, a bit less serious, and it's funny, and it's a horror comedy, but at the same time it still has the balls to the wall gore that The Descent had, and it still has some of the creepy feelings that The Descent had. And like Shaun of the Dead, it's funny and also pretty violent. I'd probably have to give this one 4.5 out of 5, 9 out of 10. It's really awesome. I really fucking like this movie, and I hope that, you know, I mean, I definitely recommend this movie to just fans of not just not just fans of werewolf movies, but fans of like horror comedy films in general, because this is a really, really good one. And while this movie does get some pretty good reviews, I don't hear it talked about too much when it comes to horror comedies, and I definitely think this was one that ranks pretty high up there for me, honestly. Yeah. So anyway, guys, if you liked the video, like my channel, be sure to like this video, favorite it, whatever you want, and maybe subscribe perhaps. I would really, really appreciate that. And check the links in the description below. There are links to things like my Tumblr, Twitter, all that, Facebook. All that is in the description below. Hey there, kids. Do you want to get cool stuff in the mail like this? Or this? Or even this? Well, then subscribe to Horror Block today. Have you ever wanted to do cool cosplays like this? Or even this? Well, now you can. Subscribe to Moonchild Cosplay on YouTube, and you can see all her tutorials on how to do cool stuff like this. Do you want to get cool horror and exploitation film t-shirts like this? Or this? Or this? Well, then go to RottenCotton.com to check out all of their premium t-shirts.